And let's start the highlight. Alright folks, hello. We're going to be taking a look at some of the different abilities here, given the next chapter with the 1.6 update. I will be putting some points into each of these. Apologize for the noise spam on some of these. So with the Dragonknight line, we've seen some changes with this, and now they're starting to get into a little bit more stamina and magicka abilities and morphs here. Now with the standard, we've changed up a little bit here, where it's added a little bit more to the ultimate you need, but the shifting standard is currently 200 ultimate, and you can refresh it by moving it back and forth. It's good for PvE for this stuff, and it also gives you certain things like Major Defile, which is one of the new debuffs, and the other option is the Standard of Might, which is going to give you a bit more flame damage, a bit more resistance to any damage that's with that, but it's going to cost you a bit more, about 250 ultimate as well. So you can use this or you can use this. Now I kind of prefer shifting standard in this case, given the fact that you can refresh it by picking it up and leaving it down. Even in PvP, that's a useful ability for a lot of sustained builds. However, I'm just going to go with Standard of Might because that seems to be the main state today. And that's kind of what I'm going to go with though, for just right now. Now, chains. Now Empowering Chains have been changed over with this granting you with Empower. That's a new ability. It's not going to stack if you have another Empower already on you. So I'm going to go with Extended Chains simply because it has a bit of extra range and reduced cost to it compared to the Empowering Chains there. Searing Strike. This is one of the ones that has now a stamina and a magicka ability. The Burning Embers gives you health at the end and costs magicka, versus the Unstable Flame, now it gives you stamina, and it also stacks off of your weapon damage and max stamina. That gives you a bit more if you're doing a two-hander or something else. Since I'm mostly a melee build, I'm going to go with that for right now. Next is the Fury Breath. You now have a stamina option for it and a magicka option for it. With the Burning Breath, it now scales off weapon damage and max stamina and reduces the armor. So basically your melee attacks are going to hit harder into the enemy. The Engulfing Flames increases the damage taken from fire attacks. So good if you're using a fire staff destro, and it also goes off your magicka. However, I'm going to go with the Burning Breath because, again, I'm a melee build and it's kind of what I want to use. Lava Whip has the option for a magicka in both. You don't get a stamina option in this. However, while ability is slotted, deal more damage with fire attacks versus allow life stealing with an off-balance attack. Since I'm going to be concerned mostly with endgame and bosses, and I can't really get that off-balance, I'm going to go with Molten Whip on my case. Lastly, Inferno has seen a big change because now it no longer takes from your magicka. However, you have two options here. You have one, Flames of Oblivion, which activates the flame aura, and also launches fireballs at your nearest enemy every 5 seconds, dealing 1,344 damage over 6 seconds. While this is activated, your max magicka is reduced by 15%, much like your Mage Light was. The other option is Sea of Flames. Same effect as the other one there. However, this will give you more magicka back when you kill your enemies. I'm going to go with the Flames of Oblivion because it adds critical weapon strike, but you got to be kind of careful with this as well because this is major potency and major savagery. This may not be stacked with other abilities here, and I'll get into that in a minute. Now, I'm just going to fill up some of the passages here, and I'll mention some of the ones here that kind of catch my eye on this as well. Yeah, most of the passes under the Ardent Flame line haven't changed that much, but some of those are bound to have more changes coming up. Now, with Hardened Armor and Volatile Armor, you're still looking at Magicka to use this. Difference on these is, this one here will add a damage shield on activation. This one here will deal area damage on activation. I'm going to go with Volatile Armor because it's more of a useful PvP option. Hardened Armor is still kind of useful to use, though. Dark Talons currently has option for damage over time, and afflicted enemies deal less damage. Both are Magicka type abilities. This is a little bit better, in my opinion, on the Burning Talon still. You can activate the Impale. You can burn enemies for 1,269 damage. Deals damage to the ground 1,304. Versus Choking Talons, deals 1,304. Gives you a minor maim, and while enemies, you can also activate the synergy. Now, remember, you have to think about what other classes can do minor maim with this, because it may not stack on top of each other. That's why I'm kind of going with the damage on my end. Green Dragon Blood, they have changed some of this around here. Now, it still does the 33% of your missing health back to you, and it does that in both morphs. Okay, now with this, it has changed over the granting buff to it. With Green Dragon Blood, you get Major Fortitude and Major Endurance, which recovers your health and stamina by 20% over 20 seconds. Coagulating Blood, on the other hand, gives you Major Fortitude and Major Vitality, which increases your health regeneration and healing received by 8 seconds. In my opinion, Green Dragon Blood's still the winner in this. Reflective Scales, still looking at Magicka on both of those. It has also been limited to 4 projectiles over 4 seconds. So, spam it if you need it. Reflective Plate increases spell resistance with Minor Ward. Remember, we have other things here that just give us Minor Ward as well. Like this one here, give us a Major Ward. These two will stack on top of each other. However, you have other things that can do that as well, so don't overstack yourself. Myself, I'm going to go with the increasing damage over to attacker every time we reflect it. Inhale, we have both Magicka options. Again, it seems to be that anything that's an AoE type of ability and buffing type of ability is really Magicka in some of this stuff. First one is an Interrupt with damage explodes, or restores Magicka. You can go with either one. My recommendation would probably be the Magicka, just because it can sustain a little bit better. Let's see here. Using Dragonknight ability. Yeah, most of these have stayed pretty much the same here. Earth and Heart is where you're going to see some things that are a little bit different here. Now, as you can see here, Corrosive Armor and Magma Shell are both here as well. I have noticed that Magma Shell's synergy range is a lot less. So you got to be careful on keeping yourself close to an enemy that can, close to a friendly that can keep that synergy up if you're going to go with it. This one here is your attacks ignore armor while activated. It's kind of nice when you're trying to bring something down. However, it doesn't help the group as much as I'd like. I kind of like the Magma Shell in this case. Stone Fist, you have a Magicka and Magicka ability. You'll gain armor with this using Minor Resolve, or with this one you have increased range or damage. I'm not going to go with either one of those because I don't really use Stone Fist that much. However, it's nice to see they have improved it. Now, Atheist Weapons is one of the areas that they changed the most on this. It's still Magicka, but they've made it so it's no longer an area effect. It's only affecting yourself when you do this. They basically made Atheist Weapons here, so every heavy attack does extra damage to your, adds duration to your abilities here, and will give you extra damage on top of that. The Molten Armor, on the other hand, gives you extra damage based on low enemy people on heavy attacks. However, this is only for 8 seconds. That's a 8 seconds is a very short time to be executing, and especially with heavy attacks as well. Even with animation canceling, I think you're going to be seeing like maybe 3-4 hits, and they're going to have to reapply this again, and that's like 3,700. That's a lot to go with. You know, especially when you're not giving this to everyone in your group. My recommendation is probably going to be using Ekiness, but I'll use it for now just to see how much more damage we're doing with it. Obsidian Shield. We have now Igneous Shield and Fragmented Shield. Igneous Shield gives you a larger damage shield casting and increases the healing you do. It increases the healing with Major Mending, boosting the effects for healing by 30% for 7 seconds. The other option is Fragmented Shield, which deals damage after the effect. Since I'd like to off heal at times, I'm going to go with the Igneous Shield, but just keep in mind, Major Mending is a buff again, and if it's going to override with anything else, well, you're not going to get the full benefit out of it. Petrify has been changed as well. Unfortunately, it does not do the nice lockdown without regenerating abilities as it used to. Instead, it does a root at the end, which disorients the enemy. Versus Shattering Rocks has the effect of takes the nearby enemies off balance and have them take. I apologize. The effect ends. Enemies nearby will take damage and get off balance when it comes up. Now, I'm not going to be using this for right now here, so I'm just going to skip that one. Ash Cloud has also changed. You have Cinderstorm, which snares persist longer after they leave the area effect, so you still do 149 flame damage and reduce their movement speed. Versus Eruption. This does additional damage now for 921, and addition 149 over damage, also reduces their movement speed. I'm going to go with the Eruption in this case simply because it does more damage. Now, one of the big things here I noticed, but we're going to come off the bat, is Mountain's Blessing. Now, anytime you activate an Earth and Heart ability, it grants 2 additional ultimate, gives a minor brutality and to all allies within 300 meters, and increases which increases their weapon damage by 5% for 20 seconds. Now that's a pretty good buff for the fact that you just cast on Molten Armaments, Igneous Shield, or Eruption. Like if you're a healer, now you have something that kind of acts like that that prayer. Now I'm just going to get some of these up. I apologize to everyone for having to listen to this. Okay, now to cover some of these different ones here. Momentum. We've added reduced cost and remove snares, so you can keep this up and going, but gives major brutality. Brutality is something you can get from multiple sources here, including weapon crit pots and other class abilities as well. Rally gives you health back at the effects end. Now both of these are still kind of useful, not so much for the major brutality, but the heals or the removing snare and the reduced cost is kind of nice. I'm going to currently go with Rally on my end here. But if you're wondering why you use the other one, is because more times if you don't want to roll dodge or get out of something, you'd hit that other one there to get yourself out of it. It's basically a less costing roll dodge to get yourself out of it, as well as giving you a buff for doing so. Reverse Slice deals splash damage to nearby enemies. Versus Executioner. When slotted, weapon abilities deal more damage to low health targets. Now, my personal feeling is that you should go with Executioner simply because it gives a bit of extra damage on here. However, if you're in PvP and you're looking for something to handle large groups, Reverse Slice might not be that bad for you. Uppercut. They currently have Disease Rings, which causes enemies to deal less damage with Minor Maim. Do you remember Minor Maim? Minor Maim was something that came over with That's right, our other armor for burning talons. So instead of having to do the an uppercut with dizzying swings, you can go ahead and do the choking talons. I'm going to currently go with wrecking blow, simply because it does more damage than the next attack. And also notice that this is the empower, which increases your damage for your next attack as well. Which, guess what? It no longer has a restriction of not affecting itself. So you can just keep on doing wrecking blow over and over and over again, and it's going to increase its power each time that you do it. It's still 5 seconds, but this kind of thing here will give you the ability to do it, do a couple more abilities, and just really stack on some of that damage, versus the last time where it was only one ability that would do it. Now, this is added with crit charge. We now have the ability for either Stampede or Critical Rush. Deals more damage based on the distance travel, or adds a snare. Now, Stampede isn't that bad if you're trying to close in on a target and you don't want them to get away. However, I'm just going to go with Critical Rush because I like the extra damage, even though that some of the stuff in PvP has been toned down on some of that. Cleave has two options, and from what I've been hearing, both are freaking awesome. Brawler still gives you the damage shield. However, people have been, now that they fixed it, people have been spamming this repeatedly, keeping their damage shield up, which damage shields keep you immune to critical when that happens. In addition to that, the added effect of continually doing that just keeps the damage shield up on, so they can take a lot more hits, especially in PvP. Carve gains ultimate. Now, with the removal of the standard ultimate generation that you used to have, this now comes up with a lot more for you. So you can get your ultimate generation from Carve pretty much the same way that you could in the old one. So, people that used to do impulse spams probably want to go over to Carve to use some of to get their ultimates and drop them really quickly, especially in group fights. I've seen this also used inside of some of the for single target against bosses. However, I do have to remind people that some of the damage is going to be less, because this bleeding action is 1,735 over 10 seconds. So you might want to only do it maybe once or twice. Do it every 5 seconds or something like that. Maybe every 8 seconds, just so you can keep that minor heroism up. One-handed shield, we haven't seen a whole lot of difference on this. However, notice that with Ransack and Pierce Armor here, we're getting major fracture, major breach, and also you're going to get additional basically you get major fracture, major breach, so you can reduce the armor and spell critical resistance. Versus Ransack, which now gives you major fracture and also minor resolve. Minor resolve will stack with our major resolve that we get from our volatile armor here, because that's a major. We now have a minor. The two will stack, and that's going to be nice and synergistic when we're trying to use it. Defensive posture. When slotted, it gives you the 8% block. We have either defensive stance, which will reflect enemy stuff back, or absorb magic. I personally go with absorb magic because I like the ability to anything that's cast at me, I just get health back from that. Other people like to use this, but remember, I'm a Dragonknight. I can, if I need to reflect things and send it back to people for damage, I'm much more likely to be using my reflective scales for that. Now we have two shield assaults. Again, you have increased stun duration based on the distance traveled, or shield assault, which will give us a damage shield when we come into close. My personal preference is invasion. Now bow, this is something I used to use as well. They have changed some of the stuff here, but with Venom Arrow, this interrupts still. With poison injection, this still also gives poison and also reduces the health recovery as well. This is a great execute for somebody who's looking for a ranged one. But remember, you still have Snipe there, which does a lot of damage from longer distance. So sometimes poison injection is good for close-up fights, but maybe not in the long distance if you need it. Arrow Spray. Since I'm a poison base, I'm going to go with the poison morph of it. However, some of this has been changed around as well. This adds the effect to ult, Immobilizer, and Bombard, versus Poison Spray deals damage over time, as well as reducing their movement speed. And finally, Snipe. This has been changed a little bit around, but it still has Lethal Arrow and Focused Aim. The thing that had changed here was Major Defile is now the ability that reduces the healing. As you notice there, Major Defile reduces the healing on them by 40%. This means you can also stack on a Minor Defile if you have something else that does that. This one here, shoot. There was one other ability here that did that, but I cannot currently remember which one it does. Destruction Staff has seen a lot of changes as well. Destructive Clench has now had a few other things that, with adding additional elemental effects, versus Destructive Reach, which has increased range to it. My feeling is between the two, but I'm going to go with Destructive Clench in this case, simply because I like to see the added damage with all those different elemental effects. Wall of Elements has seen a lot of changes. Elemental Blockade no longer stacks on top of each other. However, you can get multiple stacks on top with other people as well. Unstable Wall gives exploding when it's done. My personal preference is probably going to have to go with Unstable Wall Elements. Now, I'm not sure if this is a typo as well, but if you take a look at the bottom there, it says increase size and duration of that versus 2.5. This is now 4.5. But you take a look at Unstable Wall Elements, and now that's 6.5. So this has an even larger increase in time. So that doesn't seem as much time increasing as the other one. Force Shock, it still has the Crushing Shock and Force Pulse. I'm going to go with Crushing Shock simply because I like to make sure that the enemy can't get themselves up and we can interrupt some of this. This is, of course, giving the burning, chilling, or concussed with the pulsing, though. Not much change there. Elemental Weakness. This now affects multiple enemies, so you can cast it on a group and then go in and spam up Impulse or some of those other abilities there and whittle them down if you need to as well. This one here duration is refreshed on damage, so any damage on an enemy refreshes its duration, versus Elemental Drain, which will give you back Magicka. Even though this will keep them down low, I'm still apt to go with Elemental Drain because the Magicka that it restores helps the group. Now, Elemental Ring, again, this has changed as well. A lot of things are now hitting multiple targets versus only one, a small subset of 6 players or of 6 enemies or more. With that, I'm going to go with Pulsar myself because it reduces the enemy's max health. But remember, you're still limited by what the rules say. There is like you hit 6 people with about 100% of your damage. You hit another stack with about 60% of your damage. The next stack will be hit with 40% of your damage, etc., until it goes out until into however many people you're hitting. So just keep that in mind. You can read more about that up on the forums as well. Grand Healing. I still prefer to get Magicka. As you notice, it only gives you Magicka back for up to 3 of them. However, you can heal multiple people now as well. With regeneration, rapid regeneration, you notice that these here are all healing abilities that do not give like a major fortitude or anything else like that. I'm going to currently go with Mutagen because that's usually what I go with. Now, Blessing of Protection. This one here will give you Minor Resolve and Minor Ward. If you remember, my other ability there with the Taunt would also give me a Minor Resolve. So if I tried casting both of those on top of each other, it wouldn't work. Versus Combat Prayer, which will give Minor Berserk, Minor Resolve, and Minor Ward. Now, what's going to happen here is, if I use the Minor Resolve with my Taunt, Minor Berserk and Minor Ward will cast and hit and go on to me. Minor Resolve will simply not go on. It will refresh the time frame, so this is 8 seconds here. When I do the Ransack here, for 12 seconds. Let's say this is on the last 2 seconds, and the restoration one here comes on. It's gonna go for the rest of the 8 seconds of this one here. Currently, I'm just gonna go with that. Ward Ally, again, still pretty good ability to keep yourself with a bubble on yourself and your other players. War Streak, not much here has changed. I'm just going to go with Ward Ally. For Siphon, so with this one here, you get Magical Restore on each hit with Spirit Siphon versus Quick Siphon, which casts instantly and gives you more health. I'm just going to go with Spirit Siphon because that's usually what I go with. Now, with this ability with the Morph on Evasion, I haven't seen too much that's really that different. This one will remove snares. This one gains additional time for each effect that's on top of it. They did increase the evasion, I think, a little bit here. So it increases by 5%, and I'm wearing full medium. Here, so increases by 5% for each piece of medium armor done. So currently, this is going to be giving me evasion for a chance to dodge for 20% for 21 seconds. 5% on top of that with 7 items is going to be about 35% times 21. This is why we have things like calculators. Yay! 21 times 1.35. That's going to be about 28 seconds on that elude. That's a long time for that, too. Immovable. Break free cost is a lot less. They have changed this around a little bit as well. So this basically makes it so if this is slotted, you're going to be able to break free a lot less. I'm sure for a lot of you guys, if you're using some of this, if you're using some of these here when you're trying to go in and do PvP, that's going to help you a lot. This one will increase the duration with your heavy armor equipped. My recommendation on this is probably going to be the break free, simply because the ability is a lot better with some of that there versus the duration portion of it. Duration is only going to be increased by 5%, which is only going to be a little bit extra here, but the ability to break free, especially when using arena armor, is freaking outstanding, I think. No, Nomad, I do not have enough skill in that to get that up there. This is a new Legendary Man set. This basically gives you a bunch of abilities to the new stealing system. You get reduced cost in sneaking, Light Fingers to help you pickpocket, Trafficker to let you be able to sell more each day, Locksmith to enhance your chances to force locks open, and Kickback, which reduces the bounty when you pay to willing guards or fences. I'll increase each one of these. Now, Soul Strike and Assault. There's not much here that's changed, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put that in. Shell Shatter, yep. Vampire, I have not seen a whole lot that's changed here. Again, Invigorating Drain is one of the few ways you can get ultimate. And also notice, this is when activated. Target enemy is also stunned, and you gain 2 ultimate each second. Now, remember, the other way that you could get ultimate was a buff called Minor Heroism. This gives you to you straight out. So that's a nice little ability to have right there. Boom. Now some of your guild abilities. Flawless Dawnbreaker. when slotted, still gives you your 5% damage. They didn't change this over to a buff, so you still have that, and it's pretty good. Dawnbreaker is smiting, deals more damage to Daedra and then knocks them down, etc. Still going with Flawless Dawnbreaker because it still helps with getting your damage up. Silver Bolts hit two additional enemies versus activate and pull the target toward you if they're in Daedra. I'm going to go with Silver Stars because I have changed on mine as a DK. Now, Circle of Protection. This is a little bit interesting here. Activated, you turn undead, you scare away all your undead in Daedra within an area. And in addition to that, this is also giving you Rune of Protection, gain minor protection, which you can also get through other lines. Ring of Preservation, on the other hand, gives you minor protection and major fortitude, reducing the damage taken and increasing your health regeneration by 20%. Allies, in addition, get 4% reduced damage. Major fortitude also increases your health and regeneration by 20%. So remember, this is major fortitude. Here. What did we have back on our Draconic line with Green Dragon Blood? We had major fortitude and major endurance, meaning if I'm using Green Dragon Blood, which almost every Dragonknight's going to do, me using the Circle of Protection with Preservation, not going to work. So in this case, going to do Undead. Going to go with Expert Hunter. Now with Evil Hunter, gain stamina back when killing undead or Daedra, versus Camouflage Hunter, where you do extra damage when stealth. Well, this is a good ganker build, but I'm gonna go with Evil Hunter simply because it's better on the PvE side of things. You guys might want to choose differently if you're doing PvP with it. Intimidating Presence. Now, keep in mind here as well. They kept Banish the Wicked, so it granted you 9 extra ultimate when killing Daedra or undead. If you're having issues generating ultimate, definitely take a look at the Fighters Guild line with Banish the Wicked. That's gonna that's 90% of your dungeons right there have Daedra or undead in them. So that's gonna give you a lot of stuff back on there. I'm gonna go with Steel Tracker as well, so this affects werewolves. Now Meteor, I do not have a whole lot in this, but they have made this quite awesome in the way that it comes down. I do definitely recommend you take a look and start skilling this up if you can. Now Mage's Light, they made some changes here as well. When toggled, Master Magicka is increased by 2% with Inner Light. In addition to that, it's also grant you Major Potency, which increases your spell critical by 2,099. Now, if you remember back up here, under the Ardent line of Flames of Oblivion, Major Potency and Major Savagery with Flames of Oblivion, which increases both your spell and your weapon critical. What does that mean for this? It's just going to give you a bit more magicka. That's it. You know, you can either put the other one on there, or you can put this on there. Or you can put Radiant Mage's Light, which reveals hidden enemies, but nearby enemies take less damage from stealth attacks. That's kind of useful to me, so I'm going to keep Mage's Light, but just keep in mind this is going to reduce my magicka by 5% versus this increasing it by 2%. Entropy. Still don't have that locked in there with anything. Volcanic Rune gives you a bit, knocks the enemies up in the air versus Scalding Rune. Enemies take flame damage over time. I'm still going to go with Volcanic Rune because it's a great way to keep enemies at bay. Equilibrium. Spell Symmetry. Bard of Oblivion, you trade your life to give yourself a little bit extra magicka. You cannot heal yourself, but you can receive healing from other players. Versus Balance, which adds health recovery with Major Fortitude. Well, guess what? We already have Major Fortitude with Green Dragon Blood, so I'm not going to use it. Spell Symmetry, still the winner. Now, Undaunted, Inner Fire is good. Now, Inner Fire has changed either with Inner Rage or Inner Beast. Now, I am a stamina build. However, when I'm tanking, I want to be able to get in a build. I want to get a taunt off with either magic or stamina. And since I'm blocking, sometimes me going and taunting with the single hand is not the best not the best option. So the Inner Rage is what I'm going to go with here because that is currently Magicka built. This also gives a little bit extra chance for the synergy to occur. This one here would have been nice because it stacks off of the weapon damage and max stamina. It gives a little bit more damage. However, Inner Rage is what I got to go with on that. Bone Shield, I'm going to go with here. Spike Bone Shield returns damage back to attacker. However, it goes off stamina now with both of Mars. As you can see, this one here, surround yourself with rolling bones. Increase energies, heal nearby allies. That's going to give you minor vitality. My opinion, Spike Bone Shield is where you want to go with that. I'm just going to put an Necrotic Orb in there to show it off. With this Mystic Orb, Orb explodes with Magicka. It deals gives back Magicka back to your players. With Energy Orb, heals allies instead of damaging them with a Healing Combustion. My opinion, Mystic Orb, winner in that because you're going to want Magicka. You let your healers do most of your healing as well. Now, Alliance Wars, we had some changes here as well. Returning Maneuver still removes snares and effects. Charging Maneuvers, not that much different. Calthrop's not that much different. They have changed some of the animations, though. They increase in duration and dismounts mounted enemies versus Razor, which gives more damage to some of those enemies. I'll go with Razor myself. Now, Magic Detonation, kind of interesting to put a Magicka Bomb on those, but I don't really have an idea on how much damage that's supposed to really give right now. Under the support line, Barrier still gives ultimate and Magicka back versus Reviving, which also heals some of your enemies or some of your players. I'm gonna go with Punishing on this one here. Warhorn, you have the Aggressive Horn, which gives more critical strike using Major Force. That's a new one there. That's not really covered by a whole lot of others. Versus Sturdy Horn, which gives you 50%. Both of these now give you 50% to everything. This, however, gives you Minor Ward and Minor Resolve. Well, we already kind of covered that. We have those covered in other areas, so Aggressive is a lot better now for that. Revealing Flare. I'll go through these first real quick. Siege Shield. This one here is giving you protection on your siege and all that stuff. Propelling Shield, again, creates a protective shield. It's not giving you any major buffs with any of those. Purge, you have the Efficient Purge, which reduces the cost, still Magicka based, versus Cleanse, which will restore health for every ability removed. I'm still going with the Efficient Purge because you just need to get that stuff off. Now, Flair is a new one here. This is going to launch a Flare up and let stealth enemies be spotted, and it's going to basically come up and let them be seen. Now, a few items I did not cover is Guard. Warp space around you, toggles, warp space around you, intercept projectiles. This seems kind of awesome for anyone who's trying to do a reflection build or a porcupine build, where basically you take in some of those. However, it has a cost that's kind of crap in my opinion, because when it's toggled, you have 672 damage taken each second. As well as additional 1,344 stamina for each projectile you intercept. And that's kind of crap to me, but Vigor renews your forces resolve, healing yourself and nearby allies for 3,894 health over 5 seconds. So this is basically another way that you can just kind of heal on yourself, and basically makes you a Templar type character, even if you're on your Dragonknight or your Nightblade. Now, racials, we still have the standard robust, we still have the stealthy with Khajiit, and we still have the weapon critical. Now, I don't think that percentage is right, because increasing my weapon critical by that much, I think I would be able to see it. I think that's currently a typo. I think it's 1 decimal off with that, but that's kind of what it is. And we have the same crafting abilities there. So that pretty much covers